Hi class, time for lecture 10. We're going to look at our first specific argument for the existence of God, St. Thomas Aquinas' version of the cosmological argument. This is based off of chapter 4, section 1 of our textbook, pages 328 to 331. So, this is an argument for theism, an argument that says there is a God. The word cosmology, if you're interested, is a fancy word for the study of the universe, particularly the origins of the universe, how the universe got here. Usually physicists and astronomers are into cosmology. And we're going to be studying 3 different versions of the cosmological argument. 2 will be talked about in this lecture. We'll look at St. Thomas Aquinas' straightforward cause version. Then we're going to look at what I refer to as an abductive version. Alright, so here's the nutshell of the cosmological argument. All versions of the cosmological argument start with the same underlying questions about the universe and its origins. It asks really basic questions like, why is there a universe? Why is there a universe at all? Why is there stuff? Why is there something rather than nothing out there? Couldn't there have been nothing? Why is there stuff? Why is anything anything? How did the universe even get here in the first place? How did it come into existence? These are all the questions, I don't know, they tend to keep me up at night. I'll just be drifting off into sleep, and then this will pop into my head, and it will be really obnoxious and sort of drive me crazy. And I suppose this might separate people who are into philosophy from people who aren't. The people who are into philosophy tend to really enjoy thinking about these types of questions, or these questions can drive them crazy and keep them up at night. People who aren't that into philosophy might just shrug them off and go do something else, like play baseball or something. But anyway, the cosmological argument tends to answer all of these questions by appealing to God. And the cosmological argument suggests that that's really the only satisfying answer. You can try to give other answers, but they're just not as good as appealing to God to explain the universe, to explain why it's here, to explain why there's something rather than nothing. All of the satisfactory answers appeals to God as an explanation. So let's take a look at St. Thomas Aquinas' version of this argument. There's a picture of Aquinas. There's also a picture of Aquinas, I think, on page 329 of our textbook. In all these pictures, he looks really sad for some reason. And I don't know why he happens to be holding a house and a book in this painting, but apparently he is. Anyway, St. Thomas Aquinas was a 13th century monk, a pretty well-known philosopher and theologian. He authored a pretty famous book that we're reading a tiny excerpt from, and in that book he offered 5 separate arguments for God's existence. He called them the 5 ways. He says we can know God in 5 ways, and this has been known typically as the 5 ways for God's existence. One of those ways is one that we're reading, this cause argument, first cause argument. Aquinas, on page 329, focuses on this particular question. Why is there a universe? And he wonders particularly about its origins. Was the universe always here, or did the universe have a beginning? And Aquinas argues that the universe had to have had a beginning. There needed to be a very first event, first cause that got everything started. And that first cause, according to Aquinas, is God. God is, metaphorically speaking, the finger that first flicked the first domino, that set forward the rest of the dominoes that are our universe, moving around and interacting with each other. So, the book offers a very formal version of this argument on page 330. I believe there are 6 sentences, all numbered 1 through 6. That's a very formalized version of the argument. I've got a slightly different version I'd like to run through and explain, but it follows a little bit closely to what the book discusses. Let me read this argument, and then we're going to try to explain each premise in detail so we can make sense of it. And then we'll look at it again as a whole at the end of each explanation. So premise 1, nearly every event has a cause that comes before it. Premise 2, a chain of causes can't literally go backwards forever. Premise 3, that means there has to be a first event in any chain of causes. And that first event itself doesn't have a cause that comes before it. So as a conclusion, this uncaused first event in the chain of causes that makes up the entire universe is God. There's the argument. Let us look at the first premise first to try to make sense of it. Nearly every event has a cause that comes before it. This seems to make sense. It's just saying everything has a cause, and you can't really cause yourself, and whatever causes you must have come before you. You're the effect of some cause that happened before you. So let's look at this particular chain of causes right here. A causing B, causing C, causing D, causing E. In this case, E is our final cause in this chain. E is caused by D, and D is itself the effect of a cause that came before it. C is the cause of D. D is C's effect. D also causes E. Alright, this is getting weird, but you can see how this chain just sort of moves backwards. B causes C, A causes B, and so on and so forth, however far back we want to go. So just to give you a concrete example rather than these abstract A's and B's and C's, consider me and ask, what caused me to happen? Why do I exist? Well, I don't want to get too explicit about it, but it has something to do with my parents and them bumping uglies. So my parents did what they did and had me, and that is the cause of my existence. Well, you can ask the same question about my parents as well. What caused my parents to come into existence? And if you know anything at all about how this whole process of bumping uglies works, you know that my grandparents caused my parents to come into existence. And we can keep going on like this back and back. So what caused my grandparents to exist, my great-grandparents, or as I shorten it on here, my GG pose. My GG pose caused my G pose to exist. And what caused my great-grandparents to come into existence? Well, my GGG pose, my great-great-grandparents. And so on and so forth, ... We can think of the entire universe as one long chain of cause and effect. Now, it's not a single chain. There are lots of branches off into all sorts of a variety of different areas and spheres, but this is how the world works. An event happens, that one event causes a second event to happen, that second event causes a third and maybe a fourth event to happen, and each event depends upon some prior event in order to exist. Each event is some effect of an earlier cause. And they run together in these nice chains like this. So that was our first premise. Let's move to premise 2. A chain of causes cannot literally go backwards forever. So here's an example of a chain. It ends at Z and goes backwards Y, X, W, V, U, T. Well, sure, chains like this can go back a long way. Like, for instance, my ancestry can go back a really long way. Not only do I have great-great-grandparents, but I have great-great-great-grandparents and great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, all the way back for seemingly a really long time. But can this chain literally go backwards forever? That is, can it literally go backwards infinitely without any beginning whatsoever? Well, Aquinas thinks that it can't, and this is why he puts forward premise 2. A chain of causes simply can't literally go backwards forever. There are a couple reasons why you might think that chains of causes can't go backwards forever. One has to do with time. I think we might be able to wrap our head around the idea that time can go forward forever. That is, the future is infinite. There is no end to time forwardness. But going backwards forever seems a little bit weirder.